Hello, everyone. How are you doing today?
Doing great.
Yeah,
Great, great.
welcome back to Angular Africa. Uh, as you already know, my name is Valentine Awe. I'm your host, and we have Oyemade Oyemaja, who is the co-host as well.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Glad to be here.
Yes, so today we are, super excited and happy to have you guys here again. And as always, we always have good stuff to give to you. And today we are having Aditya, who will be taking us through his project Compito. And I personally voted for Compito at some point when Aditya first shared it on Angular Nation, and I thought it would be a great idea to have Aditya talk about the tech stack behind it, because I personally I love the I love the product, and I really want to learn myself. So Aditya, thank you for honoring our invitation. We are super happy. Um, you can have the floor
Yeah,
now.
and
Yeah, good.
yeah, thanks, Val. So let me, start sharing my screen and then we'll jump directly into the cool stuff.
Great.
So, so just for a quick introduction, uh, I hope you guys can see my screen. Right. All right.
Yes, we can.
So a quick introduction about me. So my name is Aditya, and I work as a front-end engineer at a company called Hypersonics. So mainly we do BI and analytics and stuff. And yeah, I focus on Angular, and on the back end, I used to work with Node.js. So and now I'll just talk about the project and how or like what made me create this project. So there was a hackathon that was conducted by Hashnode and Auth0. So it was like we can create anything which uses Auth0 for authentication, and then we have around uh, 3 to 4 weeks of time for building the application. And for me, I had a couple of things in mind, and I wanted to try them out. So first thing was, obviously Auth0. I have been using that in my company, and I always wanted to explore that. And then there is NX, like everybody talks about NX, and then I was super excited to try that out as well. So I think like that is when I realized, I could actually try and create something by using NX as a mono repository, and then Auth0 for authentication. And that is when I came up with Compito, the idea of Compito. It's basically a small project management application uh, without much complex stuff. You just have basic stuff just to get started. So that is how I came up with Compito. So I just had, I think, roughly 3 weeks to get it to a MVP stage, and so I didn't have enough time to design. So just everything is designed or developed whenever something comes to my mind, I just did it. So today will be I'll walk you through all the code and the tech stack that I've used to build the product. So again, the front end is built using Angular, and let me, yeah. So we have Angular for the front end, and then we have Tailwind. So I think I came to know about Tailwind like a couple of months back, and then since then, I've been using it for all of my projects because it is super handy, super easy to work with. You don't have a lot of styles. You have minimum set of styles, and even the bundle size is pretty small if you are only using right like minimal styles. So that is one great thing about Tailwind. Then for state management, I personally prefer NGXS, and I haven't tried NGRX, but somehow I like the simplicity of NGXS more because it uses decorators, and there are not much boilerplate when it comes to creating states and stuff like that. Then for authentication, it's all handled by Auth0. And for the backend, it's Nest.js. So if you are familiar with Node.js and Express, so Nest is a framework that is kind of built on top of, let's say, Express, which can be used to create APIs and servers. So it is also very quite similar to Angular in the sense that Even Nest uses dependency injection. So we have the concept of modules, injectables, and then if you are someone who are working with Angular and want to try out creating APIs, Nest.js is a good option because there are so many things in common and it'll be easy to pick up stuff. And for database, I went with Postgres database, and then there is something called Prisma. Prisma is a ORM, so that is what connects our database and the code itself. So I personally don't like to write SQL, and I'm not very good at it. So I leave that to Prisma. So what Prisma does is it gives us uh, simpler functions to query the database. We don't have to write manual SQL queries. We can just simply use like dot find dot create methods like that, similar to what MongoDB has, right? So like Mongoose has, if you're familiar. So Prisma is an ORM, and this is the basic tech stack, and everything is bundled inside a mono repository using NX. And this is the first time actually I have used NX, and I think it is one of the best decisions that I made, because most of the cases there'll be a lot of shared components between the backend and front end if you are writing in TypeScript. So in the backend also, Nest.js, we can write it in TypeScript, and Angular also uses TypeScript. So everything goes hand in hand, and NX was the best choice for that. So now we'll see the folder structure. Or before that, maybe I can walk through the whole project once, and then we'll dive into the code and stuff like that. And I want this to be a bit interactive, so that is why I didn't prepare slides, because I think I like to spend more time on the code so that we can talk about stuff. If there are some things that you would like to give us feedback, or something you would do differently, we can discuss on that as well. So let me go just give a walkthrough of the project. So this is a small landing page that I built, again on Angular. So we have a login and then new sign up button. So we click on login. So it takes you to this login page. So in the login page, since we don't have to worry about the username, password, and stuff like that, everything is taken care by Auth0. So you just click on the button. It takes you to the login screen, and this is all handled by Auth0. So we just put in the email and password, and then it'll take you to a intermediate page. So this is something interesting about the project. So we have a concept of organizations. That means like each user will be part of a single organization, or can be part of a multiple organization. So it will be easy to share projects between people, and only projects that you need others to be able to see, you can group them into an organization. So that will be an org level data encapsulation. So for that, like, I have created multiple orgs. So let me just go into one of the orgs. So I can click on any of the available org, and then it'll take me to the home page. And you can see that I've currently logged into the org here. So my username and my role. And this is also something very interesting. So we have a concept of role-based access control as well. So we'll discuss about that in some time. So in the home page, we don't have much going on. So I thought it would be easy to uh, keep it simple. So that is why we have few things on the home page. We have the recent tasks, the higher priority tasks, then the projects that you have created within the organization, then the boards that are created within projects. So the whole concept is that every user will have an org, or they can have multiple organizations. So let's say if you're working on different projects, or a different if you have a group of people and you want to work on something similar, you can create an org for that, and inside that organization you can create multiple projects, so that you can separate your projects, or backends and frontends. Or like if I'm building something and I don't want to expose that to someone I'm working with, so I can create a separate org and only invite the other person, to my org. So we can see every user can have a single org or can have multiple organizations. So I have a couple of organization, and currently I'm logged into this organization. So when you uh, log in, then you will have an option to even, as I told, add a new organization. And the next level would be projects. So inside each organization, you can have multiple projects. So in this case, I've added Compito as a project. Maybe I can have different projects. So I'm working on a different project, so I can have that as well. So this is, let's say, another side project I'm working on. So I can create a project. So again, that will be created as well. And I can see, like, I'll be part of the project by default because I created the project. And then if I go into the project, there will be boards. So we have organization. Below that, we have projects. And inside projects, we'll have different boards. So boards will be, we are very familiar with boards. We have Kanban boards in Jira. We have Trello. So everything has Kanban boards. So we can create multiple boards. So I have a UI board where I can, keep track of tasks related to the UI. And then maybe I can create a, server board. So all tasks related to the API that can be placed inside a board. So I have two boards for my project right now, and then I can see the members. So now if we go into the board, that is when we actually get the task list. So basically, we can create a new task, assign a priority, and then we can drag and drop. These are pretty basic stuff that we see in every project. So you can click on the task and see all the details, like which list it is part of, created by whom, when it was created. There is a concept of assignees. So I think assignees is something really important when you are working with a team. Like if you want to assign someone the task, or if you want to assign multiple people, you can do that as well. So it supports multiple assignees. And then priority description, you can add description, and there is attachments as well. So you can attach your images, or if you have something. Let me try to pull up some images. Oops, I think I mean, yep. So if I can just drag and drop, and then it would be uploaded. So these are all again coming in the backend. So how we save the files and things like that. So I'll be going in deep later once we go into the backend side. We can obviously download the attachments, or even remove them, and even add comments. So these are, I think, some of the basic things that we need when it comes to project management. There can be a lot of other stuffs like having tags, maybe time and things like that. But I think this would be the absolute bare minimum. So that is the only features that I was targeting. And then you can also edit the title. So these are the basic features. So we have on the first level, we have organizations or orgs. Inside each org, we can have projects, and inside projects, we can have boards, and inside boards, we can have multiple tasks. And then there is a dedicated section for all the tasks that are assigned to me in the organization. So this will be the task created by me or tasks assigned to me. So I can quickly glance through all the tasks, and that will directly take you to the tasks page. And another interesting stuff is the concept of inviting a user into an organization. So right now I'm inside my current organization. Then I can add an email and then invite that user into my organization. So when I create an invite, I can add an email. I can assign him a role. So like what role the user should be. And then if I click on invite, when the person logs in, so he'll be able to see the invite received. So this organization, somebody has sent you an invite. Would you like to accept it or not? So there will be pending invites here. And if the user accepts the invite, then he will be able to access the uh, person's role. So for example, if I invited, say, Val into my org, then Val will be able to access the projects that are inside my org. And that is again based on the role. So if it is an admin role, then he will be having a set of permissions that he can do inside the project, like edit and stuff like that. And there is another way. There is one more layer, that is where like you can even have people restricted to a single project. Say for example, if uh, I've invited, let's say, 5 people into my organization, but I only want 3 people to be working on this project. So I can only add those 3 members into the project. And so they will be only able to access their assigned projects. So that is also something happening with the role-based access control. So basically, this is the project. I mean, the working. So we have a small profile section as well if you want to update the password and name, etc. So this is the what is a current state of the project. So if you have any questions or anything, like I can take it up right now, and then we can move into the code and other bits.
Thank you, Aditya. I think I have a question. This is quite very interesting, and I want to know how long it took you to come up with this.
As I told, the hackathon started on I don't remember, September, I don't know, on 7th, and then we have to submit it by that month last, so around 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Wow, that's so cool. So was it a 24 hours of work? Because this is actually very this is a big project, and it's of course complex with the fact that you have to write the front end and then the back end again. You have to ensure you do your models, you have to ensure that that that,
Yeah.
that that's quite interesting.
I think if I see the commit, first commit would be on somewhere around August 7th. I mean, that the same day they have posted about the, what do you say?
Oh wow.
Yeah, August 7th.
That's
So
really great.
7th, and I think after that, I have, even after the hackathon, I have added only a few commits. But yeah,
Okay.
August 30, I think that is around when the final date was.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah,
That's good. Well done. Rob, you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, what's the server that we're using here? Express, or is it
it is,
Next.js stores the data? And
so it is a framework called Nest.js, which actually uses Express underneath,
Mhm.
but it gives us more structure. So if I go into the code, right, we'll be able to relate to what we're doing in front end. So we can use plain Express to create APIs, but with Nest.js, there is an added advantage, like uh, everything is structured. We have a lot of modules. We can create services. So everything is very well structured. So if I show you the code, right, you can easily relate to each of the items, like how easy it is easy to create an API with Nest.js. We'll go and like I'll talk more about when we come to the code. So
Thank
maybe
you.
if
I was I was thinking that it was Next.js, not Nest.
yeah, it
So
is
there's
Nest.
two
There are
different. Yeah, yeah. So it's
exactly,
called
yeah,
Nest or Nest.js.
yeah, it is Nest.js, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And if there are any other questions, I can take. Otherwise, we can maybe go into a little bit of how I more structured everything. So let's get into the first part, like that is the data modeling part. So as I told, there is something called a Prisma, which is an ORM that can be used to connect with your database. So in Prisma, we have something called the schema, the file, where we define how the structure of each of the feature should be. So in my case, let's say I have something called user. So that will be a table in the database. And I have another table called organization, another table called project, board, task, and there is subtask, but I haven't yet connected it yet. And these are the basic tables that are created in the database. So each of them will have relation between each other. So for example, the user can be part of multiple organizations. They can have multiple roles. So for example, if I invited a person into my org with admin role, that same person can be invited by someone else and assigned a different role. So there, actually, when I started, I haven't thought about the complexity, but when I actually came into the code, there is actually a lot of complexity involved when there is a role-based access control. And I've made a lot of changes in the model, and but finally I was able to uh, get into a state where everything looks at least good for the MVP. And the most important part of the application is role-based access control. So we have roles, and each role has permissions. So for example, I have a small chart where it has the hierarchy as well. So there are roles. Each role is having a hierarchy, and then uh, role users will be assigned a role, and based on the role, the user will be able to access different parts of the application and different functionalities. So for example, there are, let's say, two organizations, and Macy is part of both the organization. So there is an admin. Under the admin, we can have an organization admin. So with the organization admin, there are a set of rules. Like for example, they can add new users to the org. They can create new project within the org. So there are things like that. Uh, After that, we have project admin. So these people will be having access to the assigned project. So inside the project, they can invite people, they can create boards, they can create tasks, etc. And the lowest level would be the user, the normal user who can just create tasks, update tasks, and view tasks that they are assigned. I mean, if Peter is assigned the project, then he can only view the tasks of the project he is assigned to. So this will be the hierarchy that is being followed. And if you see the metrics of the permissions and the role, so you can see the admin level, there'll be permission for org. They can create, read, update, and delete all the orgs. And project level also, all the access will be there. So an admin who is part of an org can do uh, like do all the operations that he can basically connecting to org, project, board, task, users. So all the permissions are there for an admin. When it comes to an org admin, you can see that uh, there'll be read and update permissions only, and all the other permissions are there. And when it comes again lower, you can see that some of the permissions are removed. So there'll be only read permissions to the org. And when it comes to project, only the assigned project can be read or updated. And board level, everything can be done. And again, the lowest level is a user. So user can read the assigned org project, and he can create boards in the project level. So task level, he can do basically everything. So this is kind of the metrics of what are the permissions each role can perform on the whole application. And this implementation of this was also quite complex, because in the backend there is a lot of checks that you have to do. Like for example, if someone from the user somehow tries to let's say delete an org, so that should not be possible. So the role has to be checked, and the permission has to be checked in the backend as well as in the front end, where in the front end I've used a directive to a structural directive to implement role-based access control. So we'll go through the code there as well. So this is the basic hierarchy of how the roles are set, and you can see that each user will be always having a role. So even when I invite someone, I should be able to select a role and assign the user the particular role. Yep. So that is regarding the roles hierarchy. And another important thing is that everything is handled. I mean, the authentication and authorization, everything is handled by Auth0. So that actually took care of a lot of what do you say, complexity out of the application. So if I were to manually create all this stuff, I mean, it would take more time, and definitely there will be a lot of code involved. So if you are not familiar with Auth0, I mean, I think most of them, I mean, should be at least maybe tried it out or have heard of Auth0 before. So Auth0 is actually an identity provider. So there we can actually connect to multiple social providers, as well as set up normal email and password based authentication, and everything is taken care by them. So there are if you want me to go into details of Auth0, I can. Otherwise, I'll just skim through the Auth0 part, because there is a quite a bit of setup needed in Auth0 as well. So I'll maybe skip right now, and then we'll come back later if you want to,
Yeah, that's okay.
And like one thing we need to know is that Auth0 actually provides a library for Angular. So integrating the login flow was it's super simple. So if you see the login component, it is just this much. So we just have to have a button which calls a function. So and then we inject an auth service that is again provided by the library, and then we call the function from the service, and then that should take care of what you say login. And even the saving the JWT token in the client and refresh token, everything is handled by Auth0. And and that is one really good thing about Auth0. So it provides uh, route guards as well as interceptors, so that automatically the token gets added with each request. So we don't have to do that manually. So you can see that there is auth guard, again, that is provided by Auth0, and there is auth interceptor as well. So you can just directly use it, and you're good to go on the client side. There isn't much to do when it comes to the actual code part. So maybe I'll check the code as well. Yeah. So yeah, so we have the auth module that is imported, and then there are a couple of things that we have to configure, like the domain audience. So these are again coming from Auth0. Like once you create an account and an application, you get all these credentials. Again, that is explained in the blog as well. So if you want to have a look,
Can you bump up your font size if you don't mind?
oh yeah, yeah,
Thanks.
it's too much. Is this fine?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. And as I told, there is interceptor as well. So that is again provided by Auth0. So we don't have to do that. And now, so once we set up the front end, I mean the client side authentication, next thing is on the back end, there are a lot of setup involved as well. How to, authenticate a particular user, how to get his assigned role and what permissions as well. So I'm again skipping this configuration part, because I think that is again something you can go through. I'll jump into this code part. So in Express or in Node.js, we have a familiar package called Passport. That is one of the most common packages when it comes to authentication. So there are something called strategy where we define like how we have to get the token from the request, and then how we can process or validate the user. So again, this is all provided by Auth0. We don't have to know exactly what's happening in here, but I can go deep if you want to. But other than that, we just have a small configuration here. This is again a back inside the backend. Okay, this is, if you see injectable, it looks familiar, but as I told in Nest.js, the code will look a lot similar. So if I can show you, so we have apps, and then API is going to be the backend server. And if you see the folder structure, you can see very similar structure. Like we have app, and then we have a main.ts file, similar to what we have in Angular. In Nest also, we have a bootstrap file. That is where the entry point is. Then we have app. Again, the concept of modules are present in Nest.js. So you can see how we declare ng modules. Similar to that, we have something called modules in Nest.js, where we can define imports, and instead of what is it, components like declarations, we have something called controllers. And then we have concept of providers. So this is very familiar to someone who has already worked with Angular. So if you want to see a very simple API endpoint, so let's say if we check the app controller, this is how we write a controller or an endpoint. So if I go to the API/ping, then I'll be, it reaches this function, and then I can do whatever I want here and then just return it. So this is how an API endpoint will be created in SJS. It is again similar to how we create a component. So we have a decorator, we create a class, we decorate it with controller, and then again we can use decorators to set up how the route should be. So in this case, it is a get route with the endpoint will be ping. And if I go to the browser, get the API, yep. So here you can see the API. So /ping, so it returns the JSON. So that is how the most basic API endpoint would look like in Nest.js. And everything is again split into modules like we do in Angular. So we can have a user module for everything related to a user, a task module for everything related to task, and similar to all the others. And everything is we just have to import all the modules in the app module to register them. So if you do that, then all the API routes will be registered. Okay, so this is how the backend structure is. Now there are actually a lot of things going on in the backend as well, but I don't know if I have to go through that. Maybe it will be boring. And yeah, another important thing that came up when I try to implement this RBAC is what happens if the same person is invited by two different people. So there is an organization A and there is an organization B, and there is Tommy here. So from organization A, Tommy was invited and he was assigned the role of project admin. And from organization B, he can be invited again, he can be given the admin role. So now we can see that same user can have be part of different organization with different roles. So here a lot of complexity comes into picture. How do you actually assign the role? How do you get their permissions and things like that? So do you want me to post the blog link, Natty?
Yes.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
please.
Yeah. So yeah, so there is this condition that can happen, like different organization, same user, different what is that roles. So that is when I thought, it will be very difficult to manage. Like if we make everything together, it will be very difficult to manage. So what I did is actually uh, try to when the user logs in, he should be selecting the organization. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to manage all the roles. So in this approach, when a user logs in, once he selects its organization, then he will be logged on into the organization and his current role for that particular session. So in that way, a lot of complexity, goes away. So you can see that when a person tries to log in, it goes to auth 0. From the auth 0, I actually make a call to the backend and get the user details. So for example, if I'm trying to log in, then I enter the password. Once the password and username is, username password is validated, it makes an API call to the backend where it gets the details, like how many organizations this user is part of. If the user is part of multiple organizations, then he will be, redirected to an org selector page. That is the page that we saw when I first logged in. So here you can see I am trying to log in. I log in. Here, this is an intermediate page. So this is where if a user have multiple organizations like I have right now, they will be redirected to this page where they should be selecting a particular organization to log into. In this case, I click on a particular org and then I will be logged into that org. So in that way, it is very easy. And now that the user has only one role. I don't have to worry about other roles or whatever he has. So for this organization, he's an admin. So it is straightforward. We don't have to worry about other organizations or other roles he's assigned of. So that is one benefit when I went with this approach. And if they are not part of any roles, or any multiple organization, or they don't have any invites, they will be directly logged into the application. So there will be no need for selecting an organization or invites. So this is the the login flow. So yeah, this is the intermediate page that I was talking about. So for implementing this, there is something called actions in auth 0. That is kind of a webhook. So for example, if somebody tries to log in, though the action will be automatically triggered. So there is an action that I've written in auth 0. So I've written, yeah. So this is kind of the what that action looks like. So for example, when somebody tries to log in, we get the user ID from the metadata. Then we call the API, like you can see here. We call the backend, get the details, and from the details we will extract whether he's part of multiple organization or if he has pending invites, and then we will redirect to that intermediate page. If there is no redirect, then what we have to do is that for getting the user's role and his projects and things like that in the jailability, there is something called, we are using API access token claims. So we can set custom claims in the authentication token, and that will be passed to the backend. So now the backend can extract the details using the from the JWT. So for example, if I show the JWT, so I think all of us are familiar with JOT, JWT, and then we use it, in our day-to-day life. And this is how the payload looks like. So you can see that for that particular organization that the person logged in, he has an admin role. These are his permissions, and these are the projects that he have access to. These are the organization he has access to, and some basic details as well. So these are not provided by Auth0 by default. So that is why I had to come up with something in the Auth0 actions where you can manually set these details in the token. So in this way, when someone sends a request, so in this case, if I go to projects, I actually call the projects API where the authentication token will be passed. So inside this token, we have all the required data. So that is why that is how the backend would know, okay, this person is having a role of admin and he's part of this particular organization. So go fetch only those data which he have access to. So again, that is done. I don't think it would be good if I go into depth, because if like if you guys are not aware of Nest.js, then going into detail, I think it would not be a good idea. But I can give a small glimpse of how at least one of them works. So let's say in project, you can see this is for an API to create a project. So there are a concept of guards, like something similar to what we have in Angular. So for each API endpoint, we can set up guards. So we have roles guard and permission guard, and I'm setting that for someone to create an project, they should at least have this permission, org admin permission, and the permission is project create. And this is how we validate the the user's permissions in the backend. And in the front end, we have the directive that takes care of whether the user should see the button or not. So that is under libs, web, and then UI. Yeah. So permission directive, this is a very simple structural directive. What it does is it just gets the current user's details and it checks whether the user has the permission or not, simply checking the array. So basically, let's say in this condition, if the user doesn't have delete permission, so we will pass the action as delete and the user's permission set, and then that will be validated here. So we'll have the list of permissions here and the required permission. So required permission is delete. Whether it will be not delete, it will be in this format. Something like this, project delete. So if the project delete permission is there in the user permissions list, then we will show the component, otherwise we'll not. So a small directive for that. So yeah, I think we have covered the this section. Again, there is more about how to set up the Auth0 actions and how to enable the custom claims in the JWT. So everything is explained as well. So this one we have already gone. And just a basic idea that I use is how to set up the hierarchy is using just values. So user is the lowest level, and with each role I have added a number, and then each of these values can be let's say if minimum permission required is project admin, that means if any role which is greater than 2 will be able to perform that operation. So that is how the hierarchy is managed. So for example, if something is requiring a minimum admin permission, that means only the admin and the super admin can perform the action, because the minimum required level is 4. So that is one small way that I use to implement hierarchy. And this one, as I mentioned, like this is how we protect the endpoint. So we set up the minimum required role and what is the permission, and that will be checked before the API is triggered. And again, in the UI, as I mentioned, it's simple structural directive where we just check if the permission is available in the user's permission list or not. And another thing is the uh, inside each projects, each board, like we can have attachments. So each attachments are actually uploaded to the S3 buckets, and the S3 bucket URL or the IDs will be saved in the backend, and then again that will be returned with the. If you see the APIs, you can see basic details like if there are attachments, who are the assignees. These are the JSON that is returned for each API call, and everything is saved in ngx store. So I think I haven't talked about the stores, how it is set up. So in the folder structure, only the basic shell application and the API, that will be the backend, is set up, and everything else is in libs. So under libs web, I have each of the items set up separately. So for boards, for projects, for tasks, everything is separate. So each has its own state and all the required uh, setup. So under state, you can see some common items like projects, whether it is fetched or not, so that I don't want to show the loader the next time. So only the loader will be shown the first time when the user, like if I maybe throttle, yeah, you can see the skeleton loader. So for that, I use this flag to know that whether it is fetched or not. So if it is fetched once, then we don't have to show the loader next time. So it is only one time. And the loading states as well, that is also in the state. And all the others are simple. We have selectors to access the state. And then we have other actions like adding a project, updating. So basically all this does is it calls the associated service, which calls the API. So every feature will be having its own service, its own state, and all the actions like add, update, delete. So these are basic actions that can be performed on each of the features. And there are like common components, if there are shared components within the items, like different kinds of models that we see, like we have a lot of models here and there. So things like that. All these models are again part of that particular module. Yep. So yeah, we have covered objects, and I have tried to implement most of the basic best practices that I would it makes it better for maintaining the project as well. So there is a lot of validation going on. So for each of the API request, if the body is not perfect or the client is sending uh, what do you say bad request, then the backend will be returning with bad requests, and everything will be logged as well. So logging will help us easily identify the issues in the backend, and debugging would be very simple if you have proper logs. So that is something that I try to implement as well. Then if there are any error logs, that will be going to Sentry. So Sentry is kind of an error tracking and tracing service. So they have a free what is a subscription. So I've set up that, and I think it's pretty easy to set up that as well. There are a lot of articles regarding that as well.
Are
And
you
for
using
the
this entry for both the front end and the back end, or just the back end alone?
Currently, I've set up only for front backend, but yeah,
Mm,
this can be set up for front end as well. So it has support with and support for Angular as well.
okay.
So we'll get errors from the backend or the front end if you have set up that. All that can be tracked here. What browser, and if we uploaded the source maps, we can even get to the exact point in the file where the error occurred. So it is very helpful for identifying the bugs. Then obviously database backups that are something very important. Like every day backup will be generated and that will be saved in again S3. And then there are few other libraries that can be used to secure the API. So think there are rate limiting. That means if somebody tries to send a lot of requests, then the server can get what is a jammed. So that is why to avoid that, there will be rate limit. So per minute a user can only send up to, let's say, 60 requests. So after that he'll get 4 to 9 too many requests, that error will be sent. And then the whole thing is deployed. I mean, the backend is deployed in a Ubuntu instance, and for front end everything is handled by Vercel. uh, so Vercel is, it's super simple. We just connect the Git repository and then it gets deployed. But in case of backend, I went with completely manual setup, where I had the basic Ubuntu system, install Node.js, Nginx, and everything. And then what happens is there is GitHub CI/CD as well. So, for example, when I push a change in the backend, automatically the action will be triggered. So, or like any pull request or anything. So, the build step will be triggered. What it does is it actually builds the API, and then we will get the main.js file or the final artifacts, and those will be actually sent in over to the Ubuntu instance. So I create a zip file of whatever files I need to be sent, and then that is sent to the remote address or the Ubuntu system using something called rsync. So it is used to transfer file from one system to another system. So once I build the zip file or the tar file, then I move the file to the system. In that file, once that transfer is complete, from that server, we will just unzip it, then stop the old application and start the new version of the code. So whenever we change the code, automatically it gets deployed as well. So this is also something which helped me to easily iterate. So I don't have to spend more time in running things locally and then testing it out. So this makes it easy to test it. Maybe like a staging environment or development environment, we can directly push the code and it gets built and deployed. So that is also something that I did. I think that is something really good. And then if you guys are familiar with SonarQube, uh, it is a static code analyzer. So basically you can set up your project and then it will give a list of possible bugs, security hotspots, or if there are code smells. So these can be viewed in SonarQube. So we can get an idea of how good the code is, and with each push it will also say whether the code it introduced bugs or it introduced more technical debt. So everything can be seen using SonarQube also. So that is also a really interesting service. So there is a Sonar Cloud, that is a free version. That will be only for open source projects. Like if the repo is public, then you can actually have it. So here you can see there are two security hotspots. So it will give a what is the problem with it, and we can see in this file at this point. So we can then quickly go ahead and fix it. This is something, it will be very useful to find if there are possibilities for improvement as well. Yeah, I think that is all about the project, but there are so much things going on, especially in the backend. But yeah, I think that will take a lot more time to explain as well. But if you have any questions and if you want to talk about anything else that looked interesting, I'll be happy to.
Thank you very much, Aditya, for this great presentation. I mean, it's just in time. uh,
Yeah,
so, uh, and well done for the documentation. It is really extensive.
yeah. I took some time to do that as well because later for me itself, if I come back and see, I should be able to understand like, what's
What you
going on.
did. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good. So, guys, it's time for questions. We still have, I think we can still spare a few minutes for questions and answers. And also, Aditya is always available on Angular Nation, so you can always ping him as well. So, so we're open for questions and comments.
Hi, Aditya. You really went in hard on this project, honestly. I looked at it, the last time you placed it on Twitter, and I had to go through and realize it is a very neat code, honestly. And I like the single component structure that you have. Almost all the components is in a single file. I mean, everything is in a single file, and I really like it. Okay, so my question is the webhook with the rows. Is it creating default rows the first time you log in, or is that what it does?
the rule, what it actually does is when somebody logs in,
Yeah.
the hook gets triggered. That means somebody has logged in. So what I do is uh, I get the user's ID from the metadata, use that information to fetch necessary details from the server, that is the API. So basic details like whether he's part of multiple organizations or there are invites. So based on that, the user will either directly log in or he will be seeing that selection page, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So you mean Audio does not give you, I mean, when you log in, you don't get everything from Audio saved. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, we don't get everything. So they give basic details regarding the user, like the name and things like that. But I need a lot more details like the role, permissions and stuff like that. So if you want to do those kind of stuff, like if you want to add a lot more data into the token or the uh, like what I do that the intermediate state, so those can be handled using actions. I mean, it is really powerful because we can install a small npm libraries. Like I've used Axios, and that enables us to call APIs outside of Auth0, and that is it's really powerful.
Okay. So that hook is outside of Nest.js, right? The
Yeah,
webhook. Okay.
yeah, the webhook is in Auth0, but it will be calling the API in Nest.js.
Oh, okay. Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And the extension you use in showing the parameters, what's the name?
Which one? Which extension?
Extension, the VS Code extension. I don't know whether it's an extension. I'm sure it's an extension used in showing the parameters. I think in the decorators, it was showing the keys and
Oh yeah, this one, right?
yeah. Is it an
Yeah,
extension?
yeah, that is an extension. Mm, I don't remember the name. Yeah, inline parameters.
Okay. Line parameters. Nice. Thanks. Okay, I had a question about the rows when you had the one, the key and then the number thing. I was a bit confused the first time. Okay, I think you explained it, but I was confused because I saw you extracting it as constants, just the string constants. So I was
Yeah.
a bit confused as to when do you actually use the constants, the just the string constants, and when you actually use the key, the string number key object. So I think I understand why you need the the string number object. I mean that's the level, right?
One second. Can you guys hear me? I think my earphone just died.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Now I can.
All right.
So in this case, you can see that there is the role level,
Yeah.
and these are the keys that I use in the controller. So in the controller, if you see, yeah, see here, right?
Okay.
So I use that name. I pass the name, but then the values or the hierarchy is taken using this as the key. So I
I
pass
mean
in all
you have the rows as types, and it only has just types of strings. I mean
Yes,
rows with just the strings, right?
yes.
So I was confused as to when do you choose to use the rows and when do you choose to use the row level.
Oh, like that. Yeah. This is
Yeah.
just for setting up the proper types in, let's say, I have used it in multiple places. So in this case, right, just to
Yeah.
type it properly, the user will be passing a string here. So instead of just having string here, it will be better that if we give the user the correct option, like what are the possible strings that can be sent into this
Oh,
function.
nice. Nice. So
Yeah.
you guys, this code is so clean, man.
Yes, it's very clean and very
Very
I was
precise and
like the,
concise, honestly. But Aditya, last question. I mean, what's the difference between the permissions and then the rules? I feel like there are some things going on there.
So the currently I am not actually making use of the permissions in a in a deep level. Most of them is handled by the roles right now.
Oh,
But
okay.
since they go hand in hand, I kept it there because in future it'll be easy to have more granular control if you have
Okay,
permission set.
cool.
So yeah, that's the idea.
So is the permission the creator given to you by Next.js or you created it yourself?
So I am actually assigning the permission. So I'm setting up what is the permission a user will be assigned when he when a new account is created, things like that. So that is all configured before.
Okay. I mean the creator, is it you created the creator, the permissions the creator? Is it a
Yeah,
custom the creator or is from NSJS?
this is a custom
Ah,
decorator.
okay. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Nice.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I mean, please. One last thing. Okay, so I noticed in the front end side with your nav bar, you set the height. Is there a reason for that? A
You
specific,
mean
because you had a variable. Is it what's the name? The CSS properties or something. You
yeah.
had, yeah, a variable that is a specific height. So is there a reason for that? Because I'm looking at an option of just using probably a grid, or and then I mean taking the first I mean taking just one row and then taking the rest of the row just like that without specifying the specific height of the nav.
I mean, that should work, but I think I faced an issue with the overflow. So that
Oh,
is why
okay.
I be explicit so that there will be no overflow. I didn't actually try and uh, debug it. I just want to get it done.
Oh, okay. That's nice. But 3 weeks is quite as, I mean, is a serious time to finish a project. 3 weeks is just, it's just too soon.
I mean,
And
when I started, I thought it would be easy, but when I actually dive into the roles, that actually, well, I don't know, change everything. There was a lot of complexity involved, but somehow got it under control.
so, is there a go-to template or library that we need to know of that's probably you used for this project that made your life a bit easier apart from what you talked earlier? Maybe the modal aspect and all that stuff.
So for modal, I use something from. So these are some libraries that I use. One is for the toast messages. One is for the drop downs and the uh, smaller, what do you say, popovers. And one is the model itself. So I have not used any component library material or bootstrap or anything. Only for these I have used external libraries, and everything else is Tailwind.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Aditya.
So, guys, thank you. We've gone past the required time or this actual time for this presentation, and so I'm not so sure what time is it with Aditya currently. I think it will be kind of us to let him go, and yeah. So before he leaves, I don't know, Oyemade, do you have anything for us? And also, if you still have questions for Aditya, just drop them on the the Angola Africa event, this specific event. I'm very sure he will be there to answer. And to follow up with the question Stephen asked, maybe we can have another session of what's in your toolbox, like a V2, and then we invite Aditya to share if there's anything in particular. I think he made mention of some tools. He used Sentry for his login. He used something cube. I don't get. Yeah, yeah. So stuff like that might be very good for people to add to their toolbox as well. So yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much, Aditya. As usual, it was fantastic hearing from you. Uh, one more thing, please, can you kindly help us drop the link to that presentation you used? I think it's a URL from your website so that you could share that. Yes.
And the repository as well.
On the repository, yeah, exactly. So thank you to everyone who was able to make it. Glad to have you here. Thank you for being a part of us. Just so you know, our next meeting is going to come up on October the 19th. I think that's 2 weeks from now. And we have William Wan, who is going to be sharing Spring animation in Angular with Pop Motion. So I think that's a talk we probably wouldn't want to miss, so we should try to be available for that. Tomorrow on the Angular APAC channel, we have custom injection token with Angular with Vinit Tomar. And then on Friday, we have a Meet the Tiger team presentation. So we'll be hearing from the Tiger team and they'll come and have a presentation with us on Friday. So you also don't want to miss that. Yeah, that's it majorly for me. Okay, and one more thing, I think the job fair is coming up on October 13th. So for anyone interested, please be aware that the job fair will be coming up and yeah, prepare for that too. Thank you very much. Over to you, Val. You're muted, Val.
So before we go, I don't know if you can quickly take a shot. So Rob, we need to see your beard. Steven, Tito, or seeing a feed.
I'm shirtless as it stands now.
Doesn't
My
matter.
room is very dark.
That's our natural nature, you know.
Oh my goodness!
So come
You
on.
don't do that. Oh.
Okay, guys. Let's take a shot. Oh yeah. Now when I say go, you're gonna all say cheese.
All right.
Yeah, go.
Cheese.
Good. Thank you guys. Thank you, Aditya. We really appreciate your time. Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Have a great night,
Aditya. Thank
guys.
you very much.
Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye.